All right, welcome everybody. This is Christian from Sterling Night Gamers, and I'm going to talk once again with Josh about some very nerdy stuff. Starting out with Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Yes, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. We saw it together on opening night. I have not had a chance to see it multiple times because of having a kid and all that. I know you've seen it a couple times, but I also came out of the theater not loving it, and I think that has also contributed to me not going back again so quickly like I have done with the other films.
I would strongly advise a second viewing. It makes it so much more enjoyable. Like you, I from the very beginning, I definitely had some mixed thoughts on it, and I walked out not like really liking it or really hating it. It was just like I need to think about this, and I definitely need to see it twice. The second time really did help, um, as well as just the discussion that's come out afterwards. I'm sure the tone of this is going to be I'm a little bit more positive on it than you are, but
Well,
I
yeah,
definitely have issues with it too.
I mean, I came out of it in a similar way that you did. I not loving it, not hating it. I wouldn't say that I hate it. It's certainly not as bad as the Phantom Menace. Um, but I gotta say it's definitely toward the bottom of my Star Wars rankings, which is, I mean, I was so hyped for this movie because The Force Awakens came out and I saw that so many times. I love that movie. It became, if not my favorite, very close to the top of my favorite Star Wars movies list. And this movie, I think one of the reasons that I did not like it a whole lot is because it actually diminishes a lot of things that I liked about The Force Awakens that set up. And so I
Yeah,
think
like
it's a combination of that, but I think the more that time goes on, there's some parts that were thrown away that don't bother me as much as others, and then the kind of weird humor in The Last Jedi is the other thing that turned me off a little bit.
so. I definitely agree. So, um, can you hear that? Oh, never mind.
It sounded like there was a vacuum cleaner for a second.
Yeah, there was.
I was like, maybe you threw someone out of the airlock, or
Let me text my roommate. So go ahead and talk for a little bit.
Sure, sure. Well, okay. So I think first of all, let's do kind of general impressions, and then maybe after that, we should just kind of go scene by scene. I think would be, because I just have so much to say about so many parts of this film, but um, I think overall, what bothered me most is two things. One being the sort of out of place humor, and
That
I
gets better
get
at
that.
the
I
second viewing. It's like
Well,
to its defeat.
I get that Star Wars has humor. I'm not on board with these people who are like, "Oh, Star Wars shouldn't be funny." Star Wars has always had humor. I mean, go back and watch A New Hope. There are so many one-liners in that are funny. Go back and watch even The Force Awakens, and you got BB-8 giving the thumbs up with his lighter and all that stuff. I so I don't hate all of the humor in the movie, but I think that like that opening scene with Poe and Hux really turned me off because it just was like almost like wink wink nod at the camera, fourth wall breaking.
Actually,
Um
I kind of enjoyed that because that's very similar to what Poe did in the beginning of the last movie. It's like, okay, do you talk? Do I talk? Like that.
I
It's kind
that
of
was okay with me because it's like, oh, he's this like flyboy renegade guy, and he's like kind of joking around with this really serious character to lighten the whole situation, and like trying to be kind of rebellious in the eyes of Kylo Ren. But this thing with Hux was more like it went on just a little too long. Like maybe if they had just done the initial thing, but it went on so long that it was like, this is trying too hard to go into that comedy realm. I don't know. So there's that. There's the whole Canto Bite thing, which we can talk about more when we get to that. That like that whole thing, not so much the scene itself, but how little impact those characters ultimately had on the overall story of the film is what bothers me. And then I think the last thing that I still can't really reconcile is Snoke.
Yeah.
I just I can't even I can't reconcile that. I don't care, and so I guess we should say there's going to be spoilers in this
Oh yeah,
if
like
people
I
people
did it,
didn't already figure that out.
and it's
uh,
been like a month or so. So yeah,
but yeah, so I don't have a problem with how they handled Luke. Do I wish that he hadn't died in and hadn't maybe even died in that way? Yeah, but that's fine. Like it fits the story okay, I think. I've come to accept that as okay, but it's really the some of the humor. It's the Canto Bite stuff, the kind of Finn storyline, and it's how they handled Snoke. Those are my big three problems with the film that I haven't really been able to get over. And there's kind of the side problem of some of the weird sci-fi um, stuff with the hyperspace jump and all that that doesn't make a lot of sense maybe in the realm of canon and science and all this stuff, but I'm willing to let that go because it's a movie. It's more the character related stuff I think that bothers me. But those are my overall general impressions. Is it a good film? Yes. Am I as hyped now about the Ryan Johnson trilogy that's coming up? No.
yeah, um, yeah. I enjoyed it, but I walked out of that movie being like, I need to step away from the whole Star Wars and Star Wars canon. Like, like I'm less excited for the next books, the next series. Like it was kind of like a realization of like, oh yeah, this is just a fantasy that whatever director can do whatever they want, and there's no big master plan. Like there's no
And that's 100% true. I listened to the Directors Guild of America interview that Spike Lee did with Ryan Johnson recently, and he said like he had lunch with JJ and Kathy Kennedy, and like surprisingly enough, there is no outline, there's no sketch, there's no direction ever that was planned for this trilogy that anybody was held to. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was the same interview, but in other interviews of where he says like he doesn't know if Kylo Ren is going to be redeemed or not. That's like I obviously I don't want him to like tell people like what happens, but they should be like, yeah, we're planning on the arc and all that kind of stuff, and or it's just like I can't talk about that. Like that's different from like, yeah, JJ can do whatever he wants in episode 9. It's just like it's amazing just
Which
the
I'm
whiplash.
actually hopeful that JJ fixes some stuff. It's possible that JJ could do some things in 9 that make The Last Jedi a good movie. Like
Yeah,
he could.
that's entirely possible. But at the same time, I wish he wouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like especially it's amazing how inconsequential the Force Awakens is if you think about it in comparison to the Last Jedi, because essentially the whether or not Starkiller Base was destroyed, it really doesn't matter.
Right.
Like it's just the whole Force Awakens is just a setup for Luke and Ray to meet, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's an intro to the new characters, but because of The Last Jedi, that movie now has very little impact on the Star Wars saga, and I think that's one of the reasons that The Last Jedi didn't work so well for me is because of that. Because I thought that was really cool. These new characters were really cool, and then so many of them have now just been completely wasted. I mean, Snoke totally wasted.
Yeah,
Finn completely wasted in this movie. Phasma presumably dead now, maybe
I don't think she is.
wasted. I mean, either way, she was wasted yet again. Like I
See that
I
I've
don't know.
gotten that I'm actually more okay with it, like especially after the second viewing and like with interviews of like apparently the inside joke is that she's like the Kenny of Star Wars and like she's
Yeah.
just gonna Like she's like, I think she's gonna come back again. I think
I do
she's gonna.
too. I do too.
I think she is gonna lose an eye because of the crack in her armor that was caused by that last hit, and then when she falls into the fire, there's just gonna be a line of her facing down Finn in the next one, like I lost an eye because of you. I'm gonna, I'm gonna take your head or something like that. Like there's like she's gonna have either a deep scar or she's gonna lose an eye because of that. Because her armor obviously is like really good. They even show it like deflecting or absorbing a shot. So I think she's gonna be back. So I'm a little bit more okay with that. And if you think about it, like Boba Fett really didn't do all that much either in like the actual
Yeah,
movie.
that's true. It's true. He was a very minor character in reality, and
Yeah, like
he
his armor was just
got
super.
that cult following.
He's the strong silent type, I guess.
Yeah.
And I know they tried to recreate that with Phasma, but obviously, like she's not catching on as much. But it's the same because the actress is awesome. I think they could do a lot more with her. So there's that issue, but yeah, there's definitely just it makes so many things that were set up by JJ in the Force Awakens of who are Rey's parents? Why is that a big deal? Who's Snoke? What has he been doing? Like how did they find him? It's like those things really are completely
Well,
like unnecessary. Like
and
unnecessary.
it's like if Snoke was going to be essentially nobody to the films, why have they not been working his backstory into the books and comics and stuff all this time? Why bother with the red herring of Gallius Rax and like all this
Yeah,
other stuff that's been going on? I mean, it's just I hate to be like there are like these rabid Star Wars fanboys on the internet, and I guess to some extent I am one, but like these people who are just like adamant that like the old Legends stuff is like so much better and everything. Like Disney has completely ruined Star Wars, and I was kind of in the middle of that argument for a long time, and like not totally on that train. But after the Last Jedi, I was like, man, it like Luke was just so much better in all the Legends books. And there's the argument of like, well, no, like this is a more complete telling of his character, and he kind of falls from grace, and then he has this like last minute redemption and kind of becomes at peace with everything. And so like there's an argument to be made that the Disney take on Luke is the more I don't know, fulfilling and whatever. But as somebody who grew up as a Star Wars fan, like it's always been about it's science fiction, it's fantasy, it's wish fulfillment. Like Luke Skywalker is the hero, and you want to see Luke Skywalker be a hero. And I just didn't feel like Luke Skywalker was that heroic.
yeah. Um,
But
yeah.
I like the Porgs.
I mean, they were obviously just there to sell toys. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I
But I think there are little things like that that I found to really like about this movie. I mean, I thought from a cinematography standpoint, this was certainly one of the best Star Wars films. You had the pops of color and like the red crystals on the salt planet on
oh
Crate,
that
and
planet
like
was amazing.
flying the Millennium Falcon through there, and like those like crystal frost wolf fox things, whatever.
Yeah,
Like those were great. You look at some of the Canto Bight like casino scenes were really well done. Some of the way that the camera framing was handled on a lot of the shots. I mean, this was one of the better Star Wars movies in terms of use of lenses and camera angles and color. But in terms of story, I gotta say, I wish Ryan Johnson had directed it and not written so much of this.
yeah, I definitely agree with you there, and it's just inconsistent, especially with Disney properties of like Marvel. Say what you will about it, but they have a freaking plan. Like they
Mm-hmm.
are obviously thinking multiple movies ahead, and they
Oh
always
God,
set stuff up.
they've had
Especially
the whole like Marvel Cinematic Universe has been like planned out 10, 15 years in advance, you know, from the beginning of it until where we're finally getting to Infinity War now. I mean, this has all been known for a long time. It is really weird and inconsistent.
Yeah, so I don't understand why Disney can do that with Marvel, but then with this, they're just like, well, if one director doesn't like Snoke, he can just kill him. And
Yeah.
the Knights of Ren, nah, whatever, doesn't need to be mentioned again. And with Rey, it's just like if she's just a nobody, why not just give her a random last name in the first movie? Like, why
Right.
have nerds think and speculate on it for 2 years just to be like,
Well,
yeah, she's
you know, the people who really defend this movie that I've seen are like, this movie's genius because all of your questions were the wrong questions. And it tells you that you've got to forget the past and all these things. And they like, they treat this whole thing as like the most genius thing. I'm like, no, it's just lazy. I think, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I don't know.
It's just
I,
inconsistent and a little bit of a whiplash. Like, if Ray was always going to be a nobody, then just make her a nobody in the first one. Like, that's no
yeah.
big deal. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, why
like,
was her parentage ever a focus in the first place? You know, like
yeah,
if it
it
didn't
shouldn't
matter.
have.
Yeah.
And yeah, with Snoke, like he is now nothing but a mechanism that got Ben to where he was. Like
Yeah.
that's all his
Well,
significance is.
knowing now that he's, you know, I've always felt that the new canon kind of shrunk the Star Wars universe and constrained it because we can't have any books that get out ahead of the films, which for me was always the fun part about Legends because we got to see like what happened in the future after the films. But now that Snoke's dead and we know he's not going to be in the films in the future, at least hopefully there's something in the works in the comics or the books where we'll get some backstory because I think as far as we know, right after the Battle of Jakku, Admiral Ray Sloan and Hux's dad like take what's
Go
left out
yeah,
into the unknown regions.
right.
So theoretically, I mean, there is a tie there, right? Because Hux's dad was like in charge of starting the whole program for recruiting kids and making them stormtroopers and stuff. So I think at some point Sloan and Hux had to meet Snoke and like combine forces somehow. So that's the story that I like really want the answers
Yeah,
to. Like that's the story I want to hear, but I thought we would at least get something about that. Maybe I
yeah,
guess we're just like too deep. You know, it's like they make all these comics and novels and then they expect it's like, "Oh, but you shouldn't get that invested." Like, well then stop making us stuff that gets us invested. Like,
yeah. Something that I told to some other friends is that the less you're involved and deep into Star Wars, the better, the more you'll enjoy the Last Jedi.
yeah, I think that's absolutely true. If you just take it at face value and you evaluate it just as a film, yeah, it's really good. It's all of the inconsistencies and unanswered questions of being a Star Wars fan that it left out. I don't know. It's so where do you kind of rank it among all of them?
Um, I mean, I know you love the Return of the Sith. Oddly enough, like there's great things in Return of the Sith, but there's just certain aspects of it that just are it's still part of the
I
pre.
I I do love Revenge of the Sith. I gotta say.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would still do Return. Sorry. Empire Strikes Back. Um, New Hope. Maybe The Force Awakens, and then Rogue One. I also really enjoyed. Return of the Jedi somewhere in there, and then like all the prequels. Maybe Revenge of the Sith is the best of the prequels for sure. And then I would put the Last Jedi either a little bit above or below the Return of the Sith. And this could become a whole other discussion of like the problems with the Revenge of the Sith, but how quickly the turn was for Anakin of just I need to tell the council that Palpatine is, the Sith. To I'm going to murder a bunch of children was, an hour, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. It's for me, I guess the part I've always liked best about Star Wars is Jedi and Sith. And I think that's why I like the prequels more than most people, because Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith have a lot of Jedi swinging lightsabers around, and I could watch that. Like, I don't need anything. Like, I could just watch that forever. Like, show me lightsaber battles.
See, the funny thing is especially after Rogue One and now this movie, it sucks for the rest of the galaxy that every 30 years there's a galactic level war just because
Yeah.
two religious fanatical groups can't get along with each other. Like,
Well, and the whole premise of this movie initially was that that's got to stop and the Jedi have to end. But I think the takeaway at the end was like no, the
yeah,
Jedi don't need to end. Rey needs to bring them back. So
yeah, no, it's so that was actually one I enjoyed the Legends in the former expanded universe. I really liked everything, with like obviously with Thrawn it was amazing, and the Vong War I liked, and Kyle Katarn and the Jedi Knight series is one of the my favorite Star Wars games of all time, and the Forces of Corruption expansion for Empire at War, all those things I absolutely loved. However, once they got into what was it called at the time?
oh, like the new Jedi Order with
No,
Jason and Jaina.
where it's like past that, where it's like Cade Skywalker.
Oh, sure, yeah,
It may have even been called Legends there. I think or the Legacy era,
yeah. Legacy of the
where
Force or something.
yeah. So all they did was at that point was a new Sith Empire took over. It took over the Remnant, and then eventually defeated the Galactic Alliance, which formed after the Vong invasion. And then the remnants of that Galactic Alliance were just a ragtag bunch of rebels again in a fleet that was running around trying to build support. And it was just like, okay, you set all this up. You have this gigantic war. You set up the New Republic, and it all falls apart. And so now you're just back where you were 30 years ago or whatever like that. And that was one of the things that really frustrated me with that point. And that's exactly what they did in this movie.
Yeah.
It's an easier storytelling mechanic, and it's more compelling if the good guys are the underdogs in the story. So therefore, they just go ahead and be like, all right, the New Republic is completely collapsed. They don't.
I think that they could take a page out of the Star Trek book in this case, because if you think about the Federation, throughout all of the different iterations of Star Trek, really the Federation are the good guys, and they're never really the underdogs. I mean, there's Klingon space, there's Romulan space, there are the Borg. There are sections and pockets of space where the Federation is not the ruling faction, but they're never a ragtag group of people, and yet they're still able to do really compelling, interesting stories where they have to overcome a challenge. And so I think I've always been more of a Star Wars fan, but I think in this case Star Trek actually handles that what you're talking about a lot better.
Yeah, the galactic government is it's just a plot point. It's not anything that makes logical sense. Like, yes, if a capital blows up, that's a big blow to whatever the galactic government is. But if it's really made of thousands of planets, and presumably there would be some level of bureaucracy, even with bloodlines and all that kind of stuff, they're talking about this way more laissez-faire. But at the very least, there's going to be a serious number of people who are always in transit that are never at the Capitol, senators that are visiting their home systems and like vacation and sick leave and all that kind of stuff. And there would be some exploratory fleets around and some kind of police action. The fact that, the Capitol blows up and then the Republic just completely folds on itself, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's
But
that's
like,
the other thing I guess that they failed to really deliver on here by cutting out so much of the Snoke and First Order backstory is in The Force Awakens, they're kind of this resurgent force that's come, back into a little bit of power after the Empire. They're presented as a threat, but it's really like, okay, they have Starkiller Base, but it's never really explained or explored that they're like a force in the galaxy again, that they're big enough to compete with the New Republic. And by the time, Snoke arrives in his capital ship during the Resistance evacuation, apparently in a matter of just, I mean, The Force Awakens takes place immediately before the Last Jedi. There's no time in between. Like we
yeah,
see Rey and Luke do the handoff of the lightsaber, right? So uh there's no time, and supposedly all of a sudden the First Order now owns the whole galaxy, like just because they blew up the New Republic capital. Somehow their fleet is big enough. So like, when did they gather that fleet? Presumably out in the unknown regions and all that, but we never get that set up, and it's kind of like a little bit tough to buy, like you said, that the whole New Republic just folded and now there's like 300 resistance members left. That's the only good guys in the whole galaxy. Like,
yeah. You
how
would
how
imagine. Yeah, no, like obviously, like in more of the backstory, like obviously they were talking about how they were setting up a fleet and they were planning an attack, and the New Republic has become more demilitarized, and that's why Leia starts this resistance because she anticipates that there could be some threat um, from the First Order and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it shouldn't be nothing. It's just done because it just cinematically feels better and it's more compelling if they're the underdogs again. But they really should have been like, yeah, why wouldn't the Mon Calamari or so many other aliens that were persecuted under the Empire, why wouldn't they be like, yeah, okay, if this flagship is crippled, yeah, let's go ahead and send our meager planetary defense force and take it out. Yeah,
yeah.
sure, whatever. Especially since it seems like hyperdrive is so incredibly fast in this universe. The fact that and like it's all complicated of like where planets are in relation to each other on the
Right. How close was Canto Bight that they could just jump back and forth so quickly? And
right, and same thing with like Rogue One, how they just go from one planet to another, and there's really no passage of time. Like fast travel has been unlocked, just like the last season of Game of Thrones. Any kind of spatial relationship to each other makes no difference. Yeah, it like that was actually one thing that kind of made the whole Force. Especially the second viewing, I enjoyed the Force projection thing. I would have preferred if Luke hadn't died and they had just kept Leia dead
yeah.
during
Yeah.
during when she gets blown into space like that. Just reshoot it with Kylo pressing the button and then she dies. Like that would have
Yeah.
been fine. And then they could have
Yeah,
done
if he's gonna go evil anyway. I mean,
right.
I guess that's the other thing is like, I can't buy this whiny bitch as supreme leader of the First Order. Like I can't buy it. Like come on, this guy is like, we go from Palpatine and Vader and Tarkin and all these like crazy evil guys to Snoke, who seems pretty evil, to Kylo Ren, who's
Well,
at best like emo.
you know why? Because they're going to redeem, like Ray's going to bring him back to the light, and he's going to be a good guy again
And
at
there's
the end
gonna
of the.
be there's gonna be like no more. Well, we're just gonna have to take Hux out, and that's the end. Like that doesn't seem
Yeah,
that hard. Like,
yeah. I mean, like she just needs to be convincing, and like that's it.
well, I
That like
I don't know.
that's the end of the Force of like Episode 9 is she's gonna convince them to turn to the light and
It's
either
so predictable, though. I mean,
sacrifice.
so predictable. Here's the thing about Episode
But
9.
like that, I mean, I'll go ahead and like take. I'll declare that now.
I'm
Like
I'm gonna actually predict right now that at the end of Episode 9, we will have more questions than we had at the end of Episode 7.
no, but this.
You know why? You know why? Because look at everything else J.J. Abrams has ever tried to end.
Fair enough.
Look at Lost. Look at
no.
Lost. Look at Alias. So okay, so let's like just kind of like step through the movie because there are some scenes that we haven't really talked about. But that opening scene, you got Poe, you got Hux, and you got those Resistance bombers who are coming in to try and like cover for the escaping Resistance fleet. What was your reaction to just like that scene and Paige Tycho on that last bomber and all that kind of stuff?
So the Poe humor I was okay with, and the fact that he is just buying time for his like super speed boost to build up, I'm perfectly fine with that. The Resistance bomber attack, it like if you think about it as if there's a war going on and the New Republic is fighting, and the fact that he says it's a fleet killer, it would make more sense if there was a war actually happening. But if they really are the very last remnant of the Resistance and we're the only people that are putting up a fight, then yeah, he should have just jumped. But if there's a larger war going on, then yeah, let's go ahead and take out this dreadnought since it's vulnerable. The problem I have with the bombers were kind of cool, but at the same time, they were just like B-52s. Like like in terms of space combat, they really made no sense whatsoever. Like the fact that why are they just seemingly releasing the bombs and they're falling down? What's making them fall down? They're not.
So I've seen that argument. Like I don't have a huge problem with that because I just presume that there's like some kind of magnetic thing going on there with the bombs. I mean, it doesn't really bother me, like the whole gravity thing there. I just assume that there's some engineering marvel there that we just don't know about.
I know, but like
what bothered me is the over dramatization of the switch falling and like falling and like she gets it and then like presses it like how it was just so predictable and like so drawn out. Like I saw that coming a mile away and I was like, this already, like first we have this like cheesy humor thing and then this is happening. It just felt like a big layer of cheese right from the start for me. I did not like the opening scene at all. Also, as they're escaping, Admiral Akbar gets killed with zero circumstance. Yeah. Like nobody, like this guy is so important to the rebellion and to the resistance, and even earlier during the Clone Wars, as a teenager, like he's been an extremely important figure in the galaxy, and like he gets killed and it's just nothing. Like if you didn't know about Star Wars, you wouldn't even know he got killed.
Well, they do say, including like the whole leadership, including Admiral Akbar, is but I know they could have easily have made it so that he was the one that did the hyperspace jump, and like that's how he dies.
Yeah, because who cares about Holdo? I mean, was she a likable character at all? I didn't think so.
Yeah, but it's like so. I'm okay with the opening scene. I like it, obviously the whole physics and also just like how tactically of a bad idea. Like it seems that like all the other Star Wars movies where you shoot torpedoes out seems to be so much better than like, all right, we need to fly over them and then like very intentionally release these bombs. All this, so, but. It was fine.
Yeah, I thought that's what Y-wings were for, but like,
yeah,
it worked. It worked in every other movie. Like,
yeah. All right. So,
okay. So they escape with some of their lives, and then we're on Octo with Luke and Rey. Strange decision to reshoot that scene of her like handing the lightsaber.
Yeah.
The whole handoff. I found it a little strange that they reshot that. I actually thought the opening scene of the movie would be like Luke's hand grasping the lightsaber, but no, he grabs it and then he throws it over his freaking shoulder. Like
Yeah, I didn't
Again,
like that.
again, again, this is like one of those super jokey fourth wall kind of things that I just did not like. That felt so out of character and weird.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, the last time he held that, he had his hand and he was fighting his father and all the. At the very least, you would think, "Huh, how did you get this?" Or, just like, yeah, just the fact that he tosses it is just, yeah, I can't defend that. I didn't like it. I mean, I know why they
Yeah,
did that because they wanted Luke to be more curmudgeony and cynical and all that kind of stuff. So like that's why they did it. But
yeah. So I thought that the whole talk between Luke and Ray was pretty well done. Where she kind of finds out that he shut himself off from the Force, and he starts to try to teach her, a little bit about what the Force is, and that it maybe isn't as clean as the light side and the dark side. And she sees some of those Jedi texts in the old tree or whatever. Um, I thought like the whole I don't remember if this is the exact scene where she's like sitting on that pedestal and she sees like the grass growing and all that different stuff.
mhm.
That weird like cut. I mean, that looked like weird like stock footage from like a
Black Mirror.
advertisement or something. Yeah, Black Mirror. Yeah, that whole like weird B-roll that they showed while she was like having these little visions of things happening
You know what? I
around the
would take
island.
that over. Your midichlorian count is high any day.
Well,
You tested positive for midichlorians.
I
Like,
after
like
the
that, like that
yeah.
shows that the force is everywhere. That it's just inherent with life, and
Yeah.
they're
Well,
like,
after the last season of the Clone Wars, though, I'm like more okay with midichlorians because that's how they explain it too. Is like midichlorians are just basically what we think of as atoms or like life force or whatever. But yeah, it was fine. It just felt like a little for as well shot as the rest of the movie is. It felt like they ripped something from a different movie and stuck it in there. It was a
eh,
little
I
visually
was fine.
jarring.
I was fine, and if anything, it provides the most like plot relevance of porgs and shows that they live and that they die, and that's all part of the force. So
Yeah, sure, sure. Um, so then like Ray goes to this cave, this weird like Sarlacc pit looking hole,
yeah,
and she sees a mirror image of herself for a while. Nothing really happens in that cave. I can't say I was a big fan of that scene.
yeah. I mean, it like was it relevant? Does it make any kind of sense? You could say the same thing about Return of the Empire Strikes Back. The fact that he like kills the Vader looking thing and then it's an image of himself.
See,
Like,
to me that was always foreshadowing that Vader was, related to him and that kind of thing. I don't understand what this was trying to foreshadow or explain other than maybe the only thing that matters is who she is, but that seems more like a light side thing than a dark side thing. And apparently this cavern was like filled with the dark side. And I don't know. I have yet to figure out what the meaning of that is.
yeah, I agree with you, but it is what it is.
So Luke explains the whole reason why Kylo kind of turned because he thought Luke was going to kill him, and
Yeah,
we actually see that played out I think 3 times throughout the movie before we get the like exactly true
right.
version of it. Um, I don't buy this either. Like that Luke would suddenly even like I get that he's saying okay had this flash of needing to end him because he was so evil and I could sense it, but then I backed away and I wasn't actually going to do it. I don't buy that the Luke Skywalker we know
Yeah,
from the original films would have ever even had that flash of that. I mean, this is the guy who constantly said that he saw good in Vader every time that he had a
yeah.
chance to.
Invaders
Um,
killed presumably, countless number of people, and his, as far as we know, his nephew hadn't done anything yet. Like,
right, right.
So yeah, like that's actually one of the biggest problems I have with the movie is the fact that the Luke Skywalker that wanted to redeem his father, that saw good in him despite how evil he was, would even contemplate murdering his own nephew just because he had some dark thoughts and hadn't acted on them yet.
Yeah.
Um, and to do so even without even talking to Leia first about it.
Yeah, and it's also murky. You know, he says that Snoke had corrupted him by then. It's murky as to how. Like, was Kylo Ren having secret meetings with Snoke? Was Snoke just bridging his mind with the Force and talking to him? Like,
Well, I mean, you could like even in Bloodlines, they Leia senses that there's some kind of dark force
yeah,
trying
sure.
to
Even in the womb. Yeah,
right. So whether or not he's communicating with him, or I think entirely possible that he was impersonating Vader. Like having the helmet of Vader speak to him and all that kind of stuff. Like like try to channel. Like, so yeah, I definitely see like there was some kind of forced communication, some kind of far off corruption over multiple years. But at the same point, instead of kill him, take away his lightsaber and ground him, and then have his mom fly in and like talk with him.
right, right.
Like it's like the whole idea of
Well,
like, okay,
and
you're gonna
even if
kill him.
you buy all of this, like Kylo was able to just wake up from his sleep and suddenly force push everything on top of Luke and beat Luke out of the blue like that. Like you were able to like push around Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, who's
I mean,
like
I'm actually okay with that because like there could be so much turmoil with Luke and so much self doubt and like not expecting that
yeah.
yeah like
And the other thing that's really weird is presumably a good portion of the Padawans at the temple became part of the Knights of Ren because otherwise there's no way even one really powerful Sith can take out, how many ever Jedi were there training probably. I mean, Luke plus what, probably 10, 20 other kids at least.
yeah.
So
But
so the Knights of Ren
if
like
Ben was so
must have,
much better, then like yeah, like he could mow
yeah.
through them.
I just think there's more there to be explored that he must have had at least like half of the school also corrupted and part of the Knights of Ren already with him or something and like
Yeah,
taken them with him because the Force vision that Rey sees in the Force Awakens, Kylo Ren is surrounded by all these other the Knights of Ren there presumably like
right.
where are these people? Like
Yeah, it's like whether or not those now see one thing like again like the books haven't explained this all day, but there was those cultist members who followed the dark side who are obsessed with the Sith that had been in some of the other books, like they were in the Aftermath series and all that kind of stuff. Are those the people who helped who were at that attack in some way? Like was Ben already in communication with them? Or just at that moment he's like, look, Luke tried to kill me. He's afraid of the power that I have. I can show you this power. I defeated him. He's gone. Like, he must assume that he's dead. Like, either follow me or I'm going to kill you. And, through the training, they'd be like, yeah, he's better than all of us.
yeah.
And, he was a cool guy. And, like, that's really messed up that Luke would try to kill him like that. So maybe he would be able to persuade some of the people over. But I'll always be disappointed that Kyle Katarn wasn't there as one of the other Force like
Yeah.
Jedi Master,
Yeah.
being able to like protect the other kids.
Well, we
The
still
whole
have no idea where Kane and Jarrus and Ezra Bridger end up. We won't find that out for another week or two. So
they're gonna be dead. That's what's gonna happen.
they pretty much have to be at this point, I think. So
Yeah,
we also skipped over before we leave Octo. We skipped over during the the death of Akbar and all that. We skipped over this whole like Leia frozen in space, then using the Force to revive herself and fly back into the ship thing. I
They
would
should
be
have left her
remiss if I
dead.
didn't bring that up.
They should have
Yeah,
absolutely left her
it
dead
would have
then.
been a
Like,
beautiful,
especially after Carrie Fisher died, they should be like, all right, cool. We already shot a scene where she dies. Let's just read
yeah.
it so she
There's
stays
no
dead.
reason to bring her back. Really, she doesn't do anything. I mean, there's that touching moment with Luke's Force projection at the end, but that was inconsequential for the most part. It would have been a nice little tribute because she's there like looking all frozen and glistening, and it was like kind of sad. And I was like, oh, this is how they're like doing a little tribute to Carrie Fisher on this moment. And then like her eyes open, I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like, what? Like, this
Yeah.
is terrible. This is terrible.
Yeah. No, again, no defense of it. They should have absolutely just left her dead then.
Because now they presumably have not shot any scenes with her, before she died for episode 9. There may be some stuff on the cutting room floor they can piece together, but episode 9 almost has to open with her funeral or something. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know how else to do it.
I think they're going to do a time jump. Yeah, I was actually really surprised that it just immediately starts out like so soon after. Because the other movies, I think between the New Hope and Empire Strikes Back is like a year and a half, and then between the Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, I think that's 3 years.
It's quite a bit because you've got Shadows of the Empire in there technically.
Yeah, so I would fully expect that it's a 3-year time jump, and it could be, the Resistance has rallied a lot of loyalist Republic planets, and there's a ongoing war that has resulted in a stalemate with the First Order, and like Rey and a ragtag force are hoping to infiltrate and take out, leadership of the First Order, something along those lines. But I'm sure there's going to be a time jump. Whether or not it will start out in space because all Star Wars movies start out with a space shot. I think it's entirely possible that they will be doing a funeral for Leia in space, or maybe she's on another vessel and gets attacked in the beginning, and they can't get there in time. What I don't know, but
I kind of like have this thing where I'd love to see them return to Naboo, but that's just me. I don't know. I mean, it's her. Alderaan's destroyed. It's her mom. Her mom's buried there. The Emperor was from there. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff they could do if they returned to Naboo. I think they could kill off Jar Jar.
He's still alive.
He was still alive as a clown. Yeah, he was in the Aftermath series as a clown, like a street performer. So he's probably still alive. Okay, so Rey can't convince Luke to leave Octo to join the Resistance. He then tries to go and destroy those ancient Jedi texts, and then lo and behold, Master Yoda.
Yeah.
One of probably my favorite scene of the film.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it too, and it's particularly more clever once you realize that the books are already on the Millennium Falcon, and Yoda did that so that Luke wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
The fact that he started to fire and had the tree ignite before he would be able to see that reveal. And the fact that he's still teaching them of your pupils are going to go beyond you. They're going to learn from your failures. That's something all masters need to do. They're going to be better than you. That was I enjoyed that scene. I have a little bit of problem with the fact that he was able to physically hit him, but you could say they were both force sensitive and whatever. But and Yoda's maybe just that much better, so that's fine. But yeah, the Force Ghost, I definitely hope we see a Force Ghost of Luke and maybe even Obi-Wan Kenobi in Episode 9.
I was hoping, when we saw Yoda, I thought for sure like Luke would just like kind of run from him and like ignore him and go into the tree, and then like Obi-Wan would be standing there, or maybe even Qui-Gon. I was hoping to get to see more Force Ghosts too. I would have not even had a problem with Hayden Christensen making an appearance, to be honest. But I
Well,
don't know. I guess I'm such a Star Wars fanboy. Like all that fan service stuff gets me really excited.
see, the problem with having Anakin show up is like, hey, can you go talk to your grandson and tell him to knock it off? Like that, he's missing
Yeah,
the
but
whole
we
point.
know for a fact that Anakin perfected the whole Force Ghost thing because he's on Endor.
Yeah,
At- at- So I it's weird. I mean, Qui Gon was the one who like figured that out in the first place and taught Yoda and all that. We saw that in the last season of the Clone Wars, but yeah, I liked that scene. Failure the best uh, teacher is, or whatever. I thought that was a great kind of lesson to help Luke see the light that maybe the Jedi are a force for good in the universe. So that's pretty cool. Um, and then we skip over to Canto Bight and looking
we
for
skip over that.
looking looking for a code breaker, looking for a code breaker. So before they even decide where they're going, the whole like Maz Kanata union dispute holo projection conversation.
Yeah, that was pretty bad
Why even bother?
because
There's so
unions
much like this is a 2.5 hour movie that could have been an hour and a half.
are.
And it would have been much better.
Yeah, the whole Maz Kanata, Codebreaker, Casino Planet, all pointless, and I could have done without it.
Yeah,
So
I think most people who like and defend this film vehemently say that was important to show the level of corruption across the universe in terms of some of the weapons dealings and some of the slave trade, and also the point that DJ makes, that it's both the Resistance and the First Order. They're both doing war type things and purchasing weapons that feed into some of this slave trade and things like that. Um, I don't know. I mean, that was a little fell on deaf ears for me because I'm like, okay, yeah, but also one of these teams is clearly much worse than the other.
yeah,
Like,
one just blew up
um,
like a
yeah,
bunch of planets, and the other one is just trying to stop stuff like that from happening.
yeah. So the whole
It's,
thing
the
may
whole
have
planet
been
has been
a little bit better if any of it had even mattered. But as we come to find out, like they never get to do the code breaker thing anyway. They never get to actually stop the tracking device long enough to jump away and all that. So and Holdo had a plan who she wasn't telling anyone because I guess she's just terrible. I,
you yeah, so it's like so apparently that whole bomber squadron her command, and so there could be she could have more beef with Poe, that he got like her whole like squadron wing wiped out, because apparently like in like the extended universe, or not an extended, yeah, so like the fact that those ships and those bombers weren't on the attack on Starkiller base is because she was off doing another mission at the same time when the call went out for it. So it gives it a little bit more understanding of why she would withhold that information from Poe. But she definitely could have been, yes, I have a plan. You may not like it, but I think it's our best shot, and I need you to just do your job and let me do mine. I think that would have been way better than just, shut up, flyboy.
yeah, who
But
does it hurt? Who does it hurt to tell one of the other high-ranking officers, even being demoted to captain? He's still a pretty high-ranking officer. What does it hurt to say to him, "There's an old rebel base, and I think we can make it to it." Like, keep it on the
I
down low.
mean,
But I think, like,
one thing
who does that hurt?
maybe I was one thing I was thinking about was the fact that hyperspace tracking is like maybe there's a spy on board, but it's not like Poe would be that spy.
I
So
was like, oh,
like
there's a spy on board. The guy who brought us the map to Luke Skywalker, the guy who led the assault on Starkiller Base is probably not the spy.
yeah, no, I agree with that, but if you put it on the context of maybe she just, I don't know.
Yeah. So okay. So meanwhile, Ray. Oh wait, you might be frozen.
It's frustrating that that's the reason, but that's
There you're
absolutely not
back.
the reason.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So meanwhile, Ray delivers herself to the Supremacy, to Snoke's ship.
Yeah, I kind of like
Um,
that.
I thought, yeah, I mean, I like that. That's within her character, I think. Like, I'm just gonna go tackle this. I'm gonna take care of this. And so she goes in, and I gotta say that
And like Luke, she was
this,
confident that she could turn Ben.
yeah, and this was one of my favorite scenes, with the exception of Snoke being killed, because I thought his throne room was like so cool. It was like a little bit Twin Peaks, kind of like just this red glow, and like I don't know, it just had this weird ominous thing to it. I thought it was really cool and just like seethed the evil. Um, so that I liked a lot.
See,
The thing where Kylo Ren like turns the lightsaber and kills him. I don't have so much of a problem with thinking that he's powerful enough to block out Snoke's thoughts and do that. I think that's all fine. It's just I feel like Snoke was set up as a much badder bad guy than that to just go out like that.
so I'm actually kind of okay with the way Snoke died, and the fact that if you think about it, the fact that the Emperor was killed just because Vader picks him up and tosses him, like there's a certain level of arrogance that you have to be at. You think is your moment of triumph that you can be blindsided by betrayal.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the way that he went out is fitting and fine. It's just I think he went out too early.
Right. So I would be completely fine with the whole situation if during that scene where Hux and Snoke are talking to each other before Kylo Ren walks in, if Hux was like, "I'm so glad," like the like we the Empire came across your planet, or like if they had just hinted a little bit that they had found him during in the unknown regions, or like we're so like you're so wise, I'm glad you have been able to lead us to this victory over the light, and all just they just had to say some kind of line about where he came from and
Yeah,
why he's in charge.
that's
But
it.
the
That's
book,
exactly it. Yeah.
yeah, so I would have preferred some kind of hint on that, but the way that he dies, I'm actually kind of okay with it. It's just because he just gets blindsided. He just gets surprised in his arrogance, in his moment of triumph, where he thinks he has everything all figured out. So I'm okay with that. And with the second viewing, I became more okay with it. So I still think you should see it a second time. And I'll be curious if your opinion changes
Yeah,
on
no,
on the.
I definitely will. I mean, like I said, I don't hate the movie. I just hate how some of the decisions were made. But that lightsaber battle when Rey and Kylo Ren team up to fight the Praetorian guards, I loved that. I mean, that
Yeah,
was great. That's what I like Star Wars for. Like I said, lightsaber battles all day. That was super cool. And then of course, Hux comes in. Uh, Ben convinces Hux that Rey killed Snoke, and then does a little force choke and declares himself the new supreme leader, which I don't find real believable that he is like cool enough to be the big bad at this point, but he is.
I'm actually kind of okay with that because if you realize in the beginning, Hux actually draws his pistol when he sees that Kylo Ren is like knocked out there. I'm sure he was totally contemplating just killing him there. But the fact that he knows he can't take Kylo Ren on directly. So the fact that he's like, oh, this is my moment. I could go ahead and kill them and say, even like say, hey, bet like Kylo Ren betrayed and like they all killed each other. Like him and Rey were working together. Like he could spin it however he wanted. I'm
Yeah.
sure he was thinking that.
Well, I think he probably immediately then thought, "Oh, I need a Sith because I can't take out Luke Skywalker and Rey on my own."
No, I think he draws the blaster back in after he gets up and he panics a little bit. Like he's afraid of Kylo Ren,
Oh, for sure.
especially when he starts choking him. So I think it's just an character that he's
make no mistake. I think that Kylo Ren's a bitch, but Armitage Hux is a much bigger bitch.
Yeah. So he caves to him, and he's like, "Okay, you're the supreme leader." Like I'm sure there would have. He was thinking in his head, like, "All I need to do is shoot him, and then I'll be in charge." But that moment passed, and he values his own life so much that yeah, he'll bend the knee and cower. And
I guess my whole thing is that I think that Sheev Palpatine and Darth Vader and Wilhoff Tarkin and all these guys would just laugh at how terribly bad at being evil and scary these new villains are. Like they're just not convincing as bad guys to me.
Oh,
they're terrible. They're terrible people, but they're not that scary. Like
Snoke had some good moments. The fact that he was able to
Snoke had some great moments, but obviously he didn't matter. So
yeah. I don't know. I mean, if you think about it, what does Vader really do in the New Hope?
Well,
he never ignites his light. Like he likes it when he's fighting Ben.
I mean, he kills Obi-Wan, kind of.
That's it. That's the only person that he kills in the whole first movie.
Yeah, I guess the mythos of Vader has been just built up so well through a lot of the other canon properties, but okay, so then I guess all that's left is the Battle of Crate. I mean, they some of them finally do evacuate after this crazy hyperspace jump helps them get away when Holdo destroys the supremacy.
I would say or cripples. Because obviously they still land for like there are still plenty of people alive from, but yeah.
Well, it wasn't clear to me either what impact like the lightsaber breaking apart and exploding had. Like, I mean, that also damaged some stuff.
I mean, like only in that room, if anything, because the fact that like they were all alive afterwards.
I think I liked when that lightsaber broke apart. I think that was really cool and symbolic of this whole idea of this is a new kind of Star Wars saga. These are new characters. Kind of let go of the past kind of thing. Because that lightsaber was not any old lightsaber, you know, that was Anakin's lightsaber. That's kind of important. And
okay, so quick.
I don't know. I thought that was cool.
What color is Rey's new lightsaber going to be?
Oh well, I hope it's purple, but it'll probably be green.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be green or gray. I think those are the two colors.
That he goes to Mandalore and digs up the dark saber. Who knows?
Doubt it. Yes, I would say most likely green or gray, but it won't be blue because he wants to sell new toys, and it has to be different than her figure from this movie.
So what was your, before we get into the ground battle on Crate, what was your thoughts on Holdo's hyperspace maneuver?
I mean, it was an awesome shot. It looks amazing. It is very cool, but it breaks space combat.
I had the same thing. During the movie, I liked it. During the movie, I didn't give it a second thought. And I thought it was like so cool because they make the film go silent, after she does it and everything's breaking apart. And it gave this character who I didn't like throughout most of the film a little bit of redemption. And then after the film, when I started doing my nerd like turning of the gears, I'm like, well, why don't they just build a bunch of cheap ships with like hyperdrive and just blast them into everything? Like,
Yeah, I mean, why steal the Death Star plans when you could just have a bunch of droid operated ships just like fly into it?
yeah, I maybe someone will explain this at some point, but
Um, so
I I think the best explanation I've seen for it is something kind of like the Geneva Convention. But
yeah, so yeah, of whether or not it's just like so poop. But the fact that like why even bought if it's so easy to cause that much level destruction, why even bother building the Death Star when you could imagine you could just create something and shoot it at hyperspace speed, just create a giant missile. Well, like the what was it called in the expanding universe in Legends now, the Galaxy gun
yeah,
that the Imperial Remnant creates that fires missiles and then it goes through hyperspace and then it blows up whole planets. So like but it's such a problem of just if that is a tactic, why would the Rebel Alliance do anything else? Why would Saul Guerrero do anything else if that's such a good tactic?
especially Saul Guerrero and the partisans, right?
Right. So the only thing that I can think of is you have to spool up your hyperdrive. Like you can't just do it. And the fact that they are aware that that she's starting up her hyperdrive and maneuvering, and they don't care because they just want to shoot as many as the shuttles as possible. I would think in a normal situation they would either fire upon that ship that's doing that, and maybe you're vulnerable at that stage, or another possibility is if you expect that that's what they're going to do, then all you would need to do is just rotate your ship a little bit, and then like that would be it.
Yeah, because they have to make the calculation again at that point.
Right. So if you see that a ship is going to do that, but the fact that they were arrogant enough to think that she was just fleeing, that they didn't bother.
I think that's
That's
about the best possible explanation because then that takes
yeah.
away kind of being able to do that as a tactic because you have to calculate a hyperspace jump. So if you're on the other side of the galaxy, you don't know the exact location of what you want to jump through and or into to destroy it. So in
Right.
her case, she can actually see it there to do a small jump. Um, and so that's a little different. Anybody else who would have been in that same situation, they would have shot down, or like you said, they would have moved and made them have to restart the calculation. So
Yeah.
I guess that's probably about the best explanation for why that doesn't just become the norm.
And I guess another explanation that you could say is that it's a very large ship. You know, it's a whole Montgomery cruiser. That's actually, if you look at like the schematics for it, it's actually twice as long as a regular Imperial Star Destroyer. So it's a very large vessel. It still had its shields. So you could say even I don't think it was hyperspacing jumping like through it. I think what it probably was, it was going up, it was going into hyperspace and then maybe coming out of hyperspace right before impact, or
Yeah,
maybe
I think it's basically jumping into it because, as I understand the science fiction concept of faster than light travel in the Star Wars universe, when you're jumping to hyperspace, you're kind of entering a wormhole and then exiting another wormhole. You're not physically passing through that space so much.
right.
So she
So
would have kind of had to jump in and then immediately jump back out.
right. So it like yeah, it's something that looks cool and the plot. It's really useful to the plot that you could do that kind of level of self-sacrifice, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's at the very least problematic. But I think my solutions are really the best that you're going to be able to get. But I'm also curious about like I wish the novelization came out with the movie. It's not coming out till March.
Yeah.
As much as I said I'm less excited about the canon and stuff, I will be reading the novelization because I
Yeah,
am curious.
I've got the audiobook pre-ordered.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's just going to be some kind of throwaway line in the book of like, oh, this tactic is so easily debunked that no one's done it for 1,000 years because all you need to do is change the angle of the target vessel by 1% and then it just passes through. Something along those lines. Like some explanation I hope is in that book to
Yeah.
explain that why it worked this time and why all throughout the Clone Wars that had all these droid operated ships would they not do this tactic.
Yeah, at least as like a last ditch thing if they were like damaged already anyway or something, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that the Rebel Alliance uses that Hammerhead Corvette to like push the Star Destroyers in and all that kind of stuff, if they were like willing to like sacrifice themselves in that way, okay, just be like, look, have most of your men go on the escape pods, hyperspace through this thing. Let's get it. Let's win the battle. Like,
Yeah.
they were at that level of desperation that they would have done that.
Yeah.
But so okay,
So
but the land battle I liked in the
yeah,
visual
I
are
agree.
amazing.
I think after probably the Rey and Kylo Ren lightsaber battle, the Yoda scene, and then the Battle of Crate on the land battle piece, probably my three favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, like
Um,
the visuals of just the red and the white it's stunning. Like
it's really
it's
cool.
so good.
And the idea that they are like finding this old base left by the rebels, and it's kind of a full circle thing, and they're in these old jalopy ships that barely work.
Yeah,
Um, all of that I think is just really cool. And then Ray and Chewie show up in the Falcon. I loved everything about this until Finn doesn't actually sacrifice himself.
yeah. I wish he had just flown into it and died.
I do
Like
too, because his character is pretty meaningless otherwise. Rose like suddenly falling in love with him is totally out of the blue.
yeah,
And it would have been actually a really cool, meaningful end to his character. I thought, for this former stormtrooper to be the guy who saves the resistance, but then he's not.
yeah,
So, but then Luke shows up.
yeah, and I like that actually. The more, especially with the second viewing of just like what is the most like Buddha peaceful way that you could save your friends but still not do any physical harm to even your enemies. A forced projection where you're just distracting them is the most Jedi act that you could possibly do. The most
I
of using the force as a defense and not even hurting your enemy because hurting your enemy is hurting yourself and all that kind of stuff.
I don't disagree. I think it was really cool. I liked that whole approach. I just don't know that I am okay with it was so taxing that it killed him.
Yeah, no, they shouldn't have done that. Like they shouldn't have killed Luke Skywalker like that. Like
Yeah.
I definitely
If he
agree.
had he says the whole thing that's like reminiscent of what Obi-Wan told Darth Vader, which was, if you kill me in anger, I'll always be with you, just like your father. I thought, oh, this is a really cool parallel to A New Hope. He's gonna let Kylo Ren kill him, much like Obi-Wan let Darth Vader kill him, so that he can become one with the Force and become a Force ghost and more powerful and aid Rey in her training better and all this stuff. And I thought that's how it was going to go out. And I thought that would have been a really cool parallel to the original films, and that I would have been okay with. But that's not what happened, obviously.
But see, I'm
So
actually
I don't know.
even more okay with him doing that because it's like if you strike me in anger, like he goes there with the intent to kill his uncle. And so that
Yeah,
emotional resonance of I tried to kill my uncle. I wanted to kill him. Like the man who trained me and all that kind of stuff. I think that's still going to stick with him even if he didn't actually kill them in that strike because it's like he was like he didn't say like, if you kill me, he's like if you strike me in anger, I will
yeah.
continue to be with you. I think I
Well,
think in
it may have stuck with him a lot more if Luke hadn't tried to kill him first.
yeah, no, that's true. But also the fact that he like it shows his like Luke was able to point out his arrogance and that he doesn't know everything and that he can be tricked and that he's not all knowing. And so the fact is like that's amazing. Everything you said is wrong. And then later on, like, see you around, kid. It's just like you're just a child. Like I was able to fool you, you failed your mission. Like they're escaping now is because you were tricked. And
Yeah.
I was able to trick you. And so therefore you don't know everything. And you tried to kill me, you little shit. Like so like that has to like mess with you. So I think
I imagine on the second viewing that scene's a lot cooler too, just because I didn't notice at the time, but I've read since that like Luke's feet don't leave
right,
marks on the ground like everyone else. Like
right.
it's very obvious on the second watching that it's a force projection, but I did not even come close to guessing it. I thought, okay, it was a little weird. He had time for a haircut and a dye job on his beard, but whatever. Like maybe it was a long trip, but I didn't guess that it was a force projection, and then I
Yeah.
was like, oh wow.
Yeah, no, the second viewing definitely makes that scene even better.
Yeah, so I mean, it's cool, I guess, that he got like a touching, little moment with Leia right before that. I like how the Resistance is able to escape, and kind of Rey gets this last look at Kylo Ren as they're escaping. Kind of sets her up as kind of the heir to leading the Resistance, as Leia is obviously kind of getting older. Poe's there, of course. Finn, Rose. I don't know. I think that was a pretty cool closeout
Yeah,
of all that.
I agree.
Yeah. But then we get one last little scene with the kid on Canto Bight.
I'm actually okay with that. And the
I
reason
I, I, I like it.
I also I liked it. It fits well with Ray being a nobody, and so it's just like like you, the audience member, you could be a Jedi. You little random kid in the audience, go buy a bunch of Star Wars toys because you could be a Jedi. Like
Yeah. Well,
like that's
it doesn't make sense, right? That the Jedi Order was like gathering up Padawans and training them for all these centuries, and then all of a sudden, after Order 66, there's nobody who's force sensitive ever again. So I'm glad that they've kind of worked this in.
right. Yeah,
I mean, it sets up Star Wars to potentially be again in the future what I liked most about the prequels, which was there's like a Jedi actual order, and it's possible, based on that closing scene and the fact that Rey has kind of embraced this like new way of understanding the Force and the light side. Maybe she eventually trains people up, although she's going to need a lot of Force Ghost training from Luke and Yoda because she's had very little of her own. But so did Luke. He's self taught too, primarily. So
yeah, and she's got some books. So yeah,
yeah, I mean that was a cool little shot that she turned and looked at the container there in the Millennium Falcon, and the original Jedi library was actually there. I thought that was pretty cool too.
yeah, definitely.
Lots to like about this movie, but certainly lots to just scratch your head at and be
Wonder
like,
why.
this is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, see it the second time. Like, obviously, still have problems with it. The director Whiplash is frustrating, but 9 could retroactively make this one better, depending on how 9 goes.
Yeah, I really need a Snoke book, and I need it to be good.
Good
I need
luck,
it to be written by like Claudia Gray or somebody really good.
Timothy Zahn.
I don't know. I didn't love the first Thrawn book, but in
Yeah,
the new
that's right.
canon.
Yeah, that's right. I saw that. Like, I was fine with it, but
It was fine.
have,
It was fine. I think it was just like, oh, here's his story of rising through the ranks. Cool, but what else you got? What else is he gonna do? Like,
Yeah, I just hope he doesn't get killed off in Rebels. I hope he's set on.
He's got to, right? He's got to, I think. Because they
I
can't kill Vader off in Rebels, so
Well, I think what they may do is he's more or less just be like, "Hey, you screwed up here. The rebels got a victory. You now you're on this expedition to the unknown regions, and like we're not going to see you for decades." It's like he could just be set on like some kind of long mission, or
there's still no official reason Thrawn couldn't be Snoke. I'm just saying.
oh my gosh, don't that's a wild.
I'm just
No.
saying. There's he
What? No, no, no,
maybe
no.
something that could turn from blue to white, but there's you cannot prove yet that he is not. That's all I'm saying.
I would think the blue skin and the red eyes would kind of give it away.
Hey, that could change. Something could happen. It's a little strange that he hasn't used the Force yet, though. So I don't know. Probably not, but I'm saying it could happen.
No, you're 100% wrong.
So
I will mortgage. I will put a second mortgage on this house. Like there's no way that is true.
okay,
No
so
That's
one
just
thing I
0%
do gotta ask that's related to the Last Jedi before we close out is, have you finished the Battlefront 2 campaign and the DLC?
I actually haven't played it yet because I was kind of burned on the first Battlefront, and the second one is just like I'm not a huge fan of microtransactions, and I
Yeah, no, I'm with you. The multiplayer's terrible. Like you can't get into matches, and like the balance is way off. The campaign's super short. I can't say it's worth buying full price, but I would say GameFly it,
yeah
play
no
the campaign,
yeah I know
and not only the campaign, but the like DLC that came out the week of the Last Jedi. Actually, like it. So this isn't really a spoiler to say, but the story of
I know what
Battlefront
happened.
2, it ends moments before the evacuation that's happening at the beginning of the movie.
Right. Yeah.
And there's
And
some
like that's how
interesting
they found
stuff.
out like how they could defeat the dreadnought and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, they do. They steal the dreadnought plans and all that as part of it. But yeah, I don't know, some interesting stuff in there that those characters could reappear at some point and do something helpful still in the canon. Some of them. So
yeah, I mean, I would think Ahsoka Tano is going to come in before
she's got to
random.
presumably do so. I mean, there's Ahsoka, Kanan, and Ezra are still 3 Jedi that, other than Obi-Wan and Yoda, who are alive in Rebels right now. So
Yeah, and then in Empire Strikes Back, it's like or Return of the Jedi, like you're the last Jedi, or like it's like the last of the Jedi you'll be once I die.
yeah,
So they, but you could argue Ahsoka Tano is a gray Jedi and she's left Order and all that kind of stuff.
she's yeah. I mean, she clearly she's actually said the words, "I'm no Jedi." I
Yeah,
mean, so.
but
But there's no way. I think the end of Rebels, Vader will kill Ahsoka. I mean, it's just like this great full circle thing for him to kill his Padawan. I think they
well, if they were going to do that, why
have to
not
do
have
it
it already happen?
because people love Ahsoka. Man, you got to sell those toys, Disney money.
I think Ahsoka is going to continue to live in like live in like the books and shows, and maybe I don't think she's ever going to be in a movie though. But
I don't know what's the lifespan on a Togruta. I don't actually know how long she could live.
but
Yeah, because Wookiees they can live for like ever. So
yeah, but Ezra is totally dead.
we didn't mention Chewie at all. I think it's worth mentioning. I think he had a couple cool moments in this movie.
I like when he busts through the door and Luke is immediately like disarmed by seeing him again. The Porg thing I could have done without, but
yeah, it was fine. Also, when Luke and R2 meet and R2 shows the original Princess Leia cry for help, I thought that was a pretty cool link to the original trilogy. A lot of people I've seen have kind of said like that was a little too over the top, but I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it too. It was fun. I'm totally cool with that, and that's something that R2 would do. He's a little spunky.
For sure. Well, My kid will probably be awake soon, so
Yeah, I think who knows how long this is going on for, but I think we've talked this issue through to its completion, and
yeah, I feel a lot better about it now.
yeah, see,
Well,
yeah,
the other
it's
thing that was very cathartic
you're
was
there.
writing my own alternate treatment of the
Oh my
movie.
gosh, when you first sent that, I was like, oh no, Josh is manifest now. He's lost it.
I'm telling you, it would be better. It would have a better Rotten Tomatoes rating. I'm calling it right now. Just like Thrawn of Snoke. All right, man.
All right,
Well, it's been
so
fun.
this is fun.
May the force be with you.
Yeah, you too. Bye.